I usually give advice to parents who have kids who are off the derech, nebuch, Rahman al-Litzlan, lo yaleinu, suffering and struggling. This advice is for everyone else. Klal Yisrael as a whole is going through a terrible time where we all have family members, brothers, sisters, nephews, cousins, shchenim, who are struggling and losing children in a way that did not exist 25 years ago. When we grew up, you ever heard of a Jewish kid who does drugs from a normal family? Drugs? Machal Shabbos? Off the derech? What are we as a tzibur supposed to do? And I have a few important messages for Klal Yisrael. Message number one, please don't give advice. Don't go to the parents and tell them, you should this, you should that. I am amazed that my parents, I have 300 families who have come to me. And in their journey over so many years, how many people in their bungalow colony, neighbors, family members, brothers, sisters, telling them it's an extreme situation, right? We all know that. We didn't grow up with it, right? And they tell them, bivadois, you need to this, you need to put your foot down, and you need to give consequences. Don't be tough, you need to do. And I'm like, wow. Why did they think they're entitled to an opinion? They were never in the situation, they have no training, and they never helped anybody. And yet, I firmly believe, I will tell you, and I always tell the parents, when someone tells that to you, this is the response. Say, wow, that sounds great. I really want to follow your opinion, but my kid is really in an extreme situation. So before I do that, can I just ask you one question, very simple question. How many kids have you helped? If they're doing it for over 10 years, they're entitled to an opinion. They're an expert. They take it seriously. They give hadracha. We're not talking about what the advice is, and even if it's right or wrong, doesn't matter. They're entitled to an opinion. Thank you. You're helping me. If this is not what they do, and they've never helped anybody, you want your kid to be the first person that the heart surgeon ever operated on? Right? You know the famous story, the doctor is pushing the guy to heart surgery, and the patient says, I'm so nervous. This is my first time I ever had surgery. And the doctor says, yeah, me too. You tell these people, say, wow, it sounds so good. I'm just curious. You sound like you have such good advice. How many people have you helped? Awkward silence. So please don't start giving me advice on my life and death situation. So many times it's pikuach nefesh, depression, kids sleeping all day, up all night, doing drugs, off the derech, dropping out. Just admit, this is not your field. Rabbanim. If you ask your Rav a choshen mishpat, a deep choshen mishpat question, they say, for that you have to go to a dayan, a choshen mishpat dayan. A certain shilas, right? You have to go to an expert. And now every Rav thinks, when they give an opinion, you got to lig in the sugya. You got to do this 10, 20, 30, 40 times or get shimush from somebody. Don't give advice that is certain to fail. Just say, I really don't know, I'm sorry, and try to find someone who knows. We don't need to give advice when we don't know. Especially, it's not, what type of lunch should I give my kid tomorrow in school? What do I do? My kid got a 50. It's not a little question. And it's not something that you've raised kids so you know. If you don't deal with dysfunction, if you've never been involved with drug addicts, why do you think you have the right answer? Even the parents themselves. Everybody thinks that the answer that they naturally feel is right. Why? Imagine that somebody who had no experience with this would tell you that advice. You would never listen. So why listen to yourself? We got to definitely do this. We got to definitely do that. I'm not saying whether you're right or not, but if you're right or not, it's going to be just by accident. Find somebody who's doing this for over 10 years. Find someone who has a success rate, a track record, who takes it seriously, who's going to hold your hand. Make sure that whoever you ask, a month or two later, the house is calm, things are better, not getting driven worse. So the message for the 90 or 95% of Klal Yisrael that's watching people all around us, family members, is first of all, please, don't give an opinion. You're going to take a chrayas for it in case you're wrong? I know it's hard to imagine you could be wrong. Everybody thinks, how could I be wrong? Why? You have no experience. You never dealt with this. So please, no advice. Number two, we have a chiyuv. Al tadines chavercha ad shetagi elam kaimai. And if you're going to judge, we have a chiyuv, have done is kol adam lekavskos. That's our chiyuv. We have to figure out a way that these kids who are going through these struggles are not wrong. What does it mean? Don't judge somebody. Have done is kol adam lekavskos. No, he's Machal Shabbos. Doesn't apply to him. He dropped out of school. Doesn't apply to him. Yeah, it does. Ask your das Torah. Go for advice. Am I allowed to judge these kids who I don't know, who I'm just looking at and I'm hating them? Of course we love Hashem. Of course we're upset by what we see. What is the Torah's response to seeing what's happening? Find out. I think it says, Havedanas kol adam l'kavschus. And I can tell you, actually working in the field for over 15 years, that they're not wrong. How does that make sense? Go into the field, and then you'll know. My third message is very simple. When you see a family member or a neighbor or someone you know going through this, don't ignore them. Walk over to them. Don't give advice. Go over to them and say, I see that you're having a problem with a child. Don't be embarrassed. Happens to the biggest and the best tzaddikim, Rosh Hashivas, Rabbanim. It's happening to anybody. Nobody is fazicherd over here. Nobody knows for sure that they're not going to be next. Don't be embarrassed. I want to know your child's name. I'm going to daven and give tzedakah. And if there's anything I can do to support you, please don't hesitate to ask. Can my wife make some meals? Is it hard for your wife? Can my kids come over and visit? What do you need? CHIZUK for me? A shoulder to cry on? I'll always be here for you. That's how you can help. Never fall into the trap of thinking that you know what he should do. Until you're an expert, don't try. I get questions about things that are almost near my field of expertise. And I always tell them, this is the first time I have ever had this question. I think I know the answer, but I don't feel so comfortable playing with your life that you should be my first patient. I think you should go to someone who, the same way that I'm comfortable with the dysfunctional things that I'm used to, find someone who's comfortable with that. Everybody has to be very careful not to advise. There's a boy in Eretz Yisrael who was off the derech, sweet boy, nice boy like they usually are, and he wasn't dressed properly, he didn't behave properly according to the family, and he went to his sister's l'chaim. And somebody came over to him and said, "Die belongs nicht du, you don't belong over here." 10 minutes later, the boy killed himself. He hung himself. We don't always know what's happening. We don't always understand the state of mind of these kids. We hear that they're in pain. So certainly a suffix that maybe this person who looks like he's having a great time partying and smoking on Shabbos, maybe it's taka pain. The Ated Neman, which is Neman, right? It's in their name, writes 1 out of 5 kids are molested. Crazy, crazy. Whoever heard of such a thing? I don't want to believe that. Everybody can argue with experts. They did research, and everyone thinks, Machavek. No. But let's say it's no. So let's say they're wrong. It's 1 out of 7, 1 out of 10. That means every 2nd, 3rd grade, 4th grade Rebbe, out of 30 kids, 2 or 3 or 4 of these kids have been molested. Crazy. Whoever heard of such a thing? We don't know, and we don't have to know, as long as we don't hurt people by giving bad advice. Don't give advice and don't give opinions. Offer your help, your support, to daven and give tzedakah for their child. The Eibush Zal help, and we should all see emes Yiddish nachas. We should be taken out of this very painful golus, creeping up, an emotional holocaust that's happening to Klal Yisrael.